Second recording, Dimensional Capital Partners, but recorded really quick. So again, for everyone who didn't see the unrecorded version, my name is Presley Hambrick, and I'm from Dimensional Capital Partners, and I would like to welcome all the capital partners to the video. We have different segments. This segment is called Visual Capital. We have capital education. We also have capital quotes. So we hope that you see those series and that education and information on the interwebs. But I'm here with Christian. It's funny, Christian, now that it's recorded, my liveliness seems to have came up a little bit, huh?
There you go.
I met Christian a few months ago at an event, and we connected well. He is an amazing guy, and he's someone who really benefits those really in a real estate realm. But since we do multifamily here, he's a special jewel for us. So I'll let Christian take it away and let us know, what do you do, how you got into this, and yeah, give us some information, Christian.
Presley, thanks for having me on this, and I appreciate the kind words. So I'm what the industry would refer to as a building enclosure consultant, sometimes called a waterproofing consultant, a roof consultant, building envelope consultant. It's an industry of consulting and engineering in the construction world that's really taken off in the last 30 years. So everybody knows what a structural engineer does, and everybody knows what mechanical engineer and HVAC engineer does. But a lot of people who are very involved in construction, they know building envelope consultants, but from the outside, it's kind of a very niche and vague profession. So what it is, I'm involved in multifamily as well as commercial, institutional, any kind of building, anything that has to do with glazing systems, roofing, sealants, above grade weather barriers, below grade waterproofing, elevator pit waterproofing, vapor barriers, all that stuff, how the systems tie together, how they perform, how they're supposed to be constructed, how they're supposed to be warranted. And I apply that expertise across a pretty wide range of services at different phases of a project. So I've been, attained by clients in the acquisition phase. I've worked with them before a property is purchased to make sure that there's not a major issue before they buy the property. I've worked for investors who knew there was an issue before they bought the property, but they wanted me to investigate it further to understand how bad it was and how much it was going to cost to fix it. I've worked with for developers when they're building apartment complexes, from design through construction, to make sure they know they're getting a good product. And I've worked with some building owners that have purchased a property or built a property and there was an issue, and I've been called out there to deal with the whatever failure it was, diagnose it, and help them come up with a remedial solution. So it's really just taking that same set of principles of understanding the systems, understanding how they're supposed to be built, and applying it across a pretty wide range of clientele and a pretty wide range of phases in the life cycle of a building, whether it's construction, acquisition, ongoing maintenance. So, I think that, the audience for this podcast, specifically multifamily, this is a lot. It's a huge investment, huge. The amount of risk that you potentially take on You don't really, a lot of developers don't really know about it until they've been burned. I think Presley, I'll ask you the question. You're a homeowner. What's the biggest dollar cost just for your house? Not a big investment property, but what's the most costly thing that you have to replace in a house? Well, it's two things, but
I'm thinking between roof and HVAC system. And my
exactly.
HVAC guy came out yesterday to replace the capacitor. He's like, "How long have you been in this house?" I'm like, "The house is only 3 years old. The capacitor was just used." So yeah, somewhere between HVAC
Yeah,
and roofing or foundation issues.
right. And usually you don't have to replace your foundation though.
Right. Hopefully.
But that's a major issue, and that's a whole other issue. But
Yeah.
you know that one day, if you live in a house or you own a building long enough, you're going to have to replace the roof one day, and you're going to have to replace the HVAC system. So I'm 50% of that equation. And what I have found is that, let's say there's an issue with, say, a capacitor for an HVAC system. You know, if it was something like that, that's not over the top. It might be $500 to $1,000. But let's say, okay, this roof, let's just say there's a 4,000 square foot roof completely installed wrong. That's not going to be $500 to $1,000. It's going to be much more expensive. So the risk associated with building envelope failures, the stakes are so high that really the reason building enclosure consulting became a profession was because the litigation associated with claims, related to water failure or, a leaky building enclosure, what have you. It's mostly just water getting into buildings and destroying things. And it's a bad situation. So I don't know the exact statistic. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but I want to say 60%, and this is all construction related claims. So that's, foundations or HVAC or an electrical issues, waterproofing. 60% of it is related to water infiltration, building envelope failures. So everything else is 40%, 60% is building envelope related failures.
That's huge.
And yes, it is. And it's been, and so years ago, I would say what I did was even more obscure. People still build buildings without hiring a building closure consultant, although not generally advised. There used to just be a law. There was a lot of it. There's still a lot of litigation. Actually, it hasn't gone down. So what I do is effectively walked back from the courtroom. And so instead of saying, okay, hey, we're gonna hire this guy at $300 to $350 an hour to come do depositions and investigate, and not to mention the repairs associated with this. Developers, lenders, even the banks, they know about this. They've said, get a building enclosure consultant, pay him to look over the process from A to Z. So, I'm not designing it, but they want somebody to provide quality assurance that what you're getting is going to actually work. So that's really I want to say the genesis of building enclosure consulting for new construction, and working for developers. I think so it isn't just the developers. It's also the architects realize the liability, and the lenders realize the liability. So they've kind of said, we're going to consider this a cost of doing business, especially as you get, you get to, 150, 200, 300 units. Suddenly my cost per unit If you want to look at it that way, it really just starts going down.
Right.
And to many of these clients I've had, they say, okay, this is a good form of insurance, because not only do they usually get my insurance certificate, I'm also looking at it, and their lenders a lot of times requiring it. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I do for multifamily developers. Did you have any questions about, about what I do from like kind of a breakdown, or any questions, anything you came across when buying properties, or uh, you know, getting into a new construction project?
Yes, I have two questions. The second question, because I want to go back to that one. The second question, or more of a request for elaboration, is because we have a lot of veteran syndicators, multifamily, buyers and sellers that are going to be watching this. But we're going to have a lot of newbie syndicators, and we're going to be having a lot of investors who either just want more information to understand what the syndicators or their sponsor is doing, or a lot of times they are investing passively to possibly go into the syndicator's route. They want to follow the path. So I want to put this question second, or request just to go into more detail of,
Sure.
what specifically do you look for, so on and so forth. But my first question would be more pertaining to lending. And I know you would like to get the phone call before we even find the property, but when is the best time to give you a phone call, to have you come out? Is it just always, during pre-acquisition? Would it be during the due diligence phase? Does one make more sense because this is your profession and it's not so common sense to us? Or is it, yeah, call me out as soon as possible? Or does it make sense to do it at a certain point?
I would say, and I think you're talking about specifically buying properties and
Yes,
how to
existing.
engage a building closure consultant. So I'll say this. Are you familiar with property condition assessments performed per ASTM E2018, or basically the property condition assessment that the lender is requiring you to do for the cost of needs? So
Yes.
that's very common to do that assessment prior to closing. So I would say, if I was engaged at the same time that individual was engaged, that's perfect. And I've done one of these property condition assessments, and my take on it is, these assessors are very good at doing that particular thing. Effectively, you've got a property condition assessment, and what that is, it's a very high level, almost, it's technical, but it doesn't go into detail, guide for looking at the building overall. So fire alarm control panels, lighting, exterior cladding, HVAC systems. And they're looking at, okay, this HVAC system is 18 years old, and I've got 5 units I got to replace. That's all the detail they go into. So the lender wants that, as you know, because if there's a lot of repairs you have to do on that building and they're buying it, let's say it all has to be done immediately, they're going to escrow it. So that's something the lender is looking at, to make sure that the investor can cover the cost of needed maintenance. But what it isn't is an in-depth look at roofing systems, balcony systems, a really detailed look at risk mitigation. So the banks are requiring, and this is just, you know, my take on a lot of this is currently the banks, and I think they're right to say, we want somebody to look at what the cost of maintenance is going to be for this building. But what they're not looking at is something that I view as a pretty rampant issue, and it's pretty rampant in Texas. Just, you know, there's obviously well-built buildings out there, contractors that do an excellent job, but there's a lot of bad contractors in the same hand that, and one building envelope failure, that's just say, oh, I've got 200 balconies times, you know, or it's a balcony issue times 200. Suddenly that's $1 million, $2 million to get it fixed.
Right.
And, you know, I don't see anybody looking at that. And so that's a huge, part of your investment. And I think that, you know, I just say this, let's say you were going to buy a property, and you knew about an issue like that, you'd probably walk away from the deal, or you'd use it as some form of negotiation.
Right.
But
Right.
not knowing that, that could leave you in quite a predicament. So I would say, you know, for the purpose of investors, it's always better before a property is purchased. And at the very least, let's just say, I'll give you an example. I used to do this, for a company. It was a REIT based out of Chicago, and I don't know how many billions a year they spent, but they bought student housing, medical office, and senior living across the country. So, I mean, I looked at properties for them in Houston, Florida, Northern Arizona, Arkansas, and I want to say there was some other locations up in the Northeast that I helped some folks, some former coworkers, that same client, and they got burned. They bought a building in Alabama that, it was a university student housing building, and it had. Are you familiar with EIFS? It's it's like an insulated, stucco product. So it's a, you know, EPS foam with a stucco appearance on it. And ultimately it was a barrier system that failed. So, the cost to replace it was, I'm guessing, horrendous. I don't have all the details on that. I just know about it. But since then, they hired us to look at all of their properties in that manner, because they were doing, you know, $50 million, $100 million, $30 million acquisitions. And they reached the conclusion that, okay, we're paying this company a lot of money, but it's not that much in comparison to our investment. And I'm guessing that, you know, I don't know who their investors were, but it was a REIT. So I'm guessing there was a lot of pensions tied up in it. A lot of institutional money was tied up in this group. And that's just an example of a large institutional investor. And their stance was, they are going to do the same process every time, because at least by doing that, they know that they're not going to have an issue. So, they went above and beyond the necessary property condition assessment. And I, of course I agree with them, because I have an interest in it, but, I'd put it this way. You wouldn't hire me to go out and look at an HVAC system and say, hey, what do you think of this? I know a thing or two, but I wouldn't be the guy to reach out to.
Right. It's not your specialty.
Yeah, you wouldn't hire me to assess a foundation, even though I know a thing or two. So my thought on the home inspectors and the property condition assessors is you are paying that guy or gal to go out and look at everything uh, on the property all at once. And it's a possibility that he's a specialist in everything, but I highly doubt it.
Right.
So I think that on larger acquisitions, it becomes sensible to look at your two biggest investments, possibly three. I would say structural, HVAC, and waterproofing. Any of those three things could be, a bad thing for the project financially. The deal suddenly goes from looking great to really not being a
Not so
good deal.
great.
Yeah. So that's it. It's always better up front to have me engaged on work. I mean, of course, if there's an issue, you already own a property, and I have been called to look at things after the worst has already happened. And I've found ways to work with people on finding sensible solutions. So I'm reasonable. I think that, and there's other building enclosure consultants just like me that would probably concur with what I'm saying. Right. So it's not just my opinion.
So probably as soon as the LOI has been accepted and you're sending money over, you should be the second phone call.
Yeah, okay. I would say. I mean, I'd say you get your due diligence team lined up.
Okay. Give us very small, very short if possible, like 1 or 2 examples of, and you kind of hinted on some things, but some details, like what do you actually do
Sure.
when you go look at a property?
Okay, so let's say we've got, I'll just give you a couple examples because it's really hard. It's going to be hard for me to say, 100% what I do, but I'll give you 2 or 3 examples. I was called to look at a student housing complex in Northern Arizona. So it was Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. It was 5 buildings, 5 stories, 5 separate roofs, 163 individual condenser units. So what they did is the roof was it was a low slope membrane roof, PVC roof from Fibertite. From all appearances, it looked like the roof was installed correctly until HVAC got out there. And it looks like HVAC got out there. They placed some of the units directly on the roof, damaging the roof. They put the units on wood sleepers, but worst of all, they cut, I want to say it was more than 160 holes in the curbs. You had a rise wall that was maybe 6 feet tall, membrane over it. They cut holes in that, ran all the cable, all the electrical, all the condenser lines, made this really funny looking makeshift boot, and then spray foamed into it. And the spray foam had already just failed. It had just been damaged by the sun. So it was really, there was no way to warrant that. And so the question, I said, well, do you have a warranty for this roof? Yeah, they had a warranty, but warranties don't actually cover everything. If you read
Right.
those warranties carefully.
Saw it in the fine print.
Yeah, exactly. So the manufacturer's rep came out, you know, crawled around and found some damage, some, you know, nicks in the membrane, and they patched it. And I said, well, what about all these holes that are just obvious? And they said, well, they didn't, you know, basically I figured out they did not talk about things that aren't covered by their warranty because they're interested in selling roofs. They're not interested in fixing your roof.
Right.
And it's not really their problem because their warranty doesn't cover it anyways.
Mm.
So it was, I want to say $500,000.
Mm.
So a couple of years ago to fix all this. And it ended up going and being part of they ended up going through with the deal, but they were able to negotiate with that. Same client, about a year later, San Diego, medical office building. It was a 3-story medical office building, and it had, you know, continuous ribbon window all the way around, you know, basically ribbon window, first floor, ribbon window, second floor and third floor. Stucco, as you know, it has to have a weep screed. It has to have a way to drain.
Mm-hmm.
None of the stucco had that.
Mm.
You know, so this was a 6-figure sum to fix this. And they ended up making that part of the negotiation. And I'll just put it this way. I wasn't paid 6 figures to go do this investigation, not even close.
Darn.
So every time they've hired me, they've got their money.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm just trying to find something so I can shake somebody down. I've gone and looked at things, and things have been fine. But it is surprising to me the number of times I have gone to look at something and seen something that was an issue equal to or much greater than my service cost, put it that way.
Right.
I was called out in College Station, a builder client of mine, builder developer. They built a retirement community. And I want to say it was 2013 when it was completed. And the waterproofer, so it's a retirement community, and you have a bunch of balconies all around it on columns. You know, some balconies are cantilevered out, some balconies are sitting on columns. The penetrations for the posts, they were all done wrong. 28 balconies times 3 posts times, I want to say 2 to 3 stories per balcony. And I think you know where this is going.
It's adding up quick.
It was adding up. So when they first called me, they said, hey, I think that we've got some sticky brick, you know, the thin brick, it's fallen off. We just think it's a bad product. I said, okay, well, I'll go figure out why the sticky brick's falling off. That's what I thought it was. I thought it was just some stone falling off when I saw the picture. So I went out to go investigate. We got a mason out there, and we start taking a little bit of the sticky brick off, and we see that the mesh lath is completely corroded and there's nothing left. It looks like it's been sitting in salt water. You can just touch it and it breaks. And I just thought this is not from a stone failure. So that sticky brick was below a balcony. So, you know, to me, that told me, well, okay, water's getting in through the balcony. So we proceeded to investigate. Lawyers got involved. You know, we were eventually retained by their insurance company through the attorney. And this is just one of those horror stories where I don't think anybody ever came out and looked at this building, and it was really something as simple as waterproofing membrane and some sealants and some flashings around a column. And it turned into there's water getting into the balconies, and now there's structural damage. And then they had to stop letting residents on the balcony, and the chain reaction goes there and there, and suddenly they filed an insurance claim. So that is, you know, and I'm not just trying to scare folks. I think that, you know, it does happen though. And, I guess I just look at it this way. These are probably the biggest investments in your line of business. This is the biggest investment you'll ever make on doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And the biggest investment within a building and operation is the roof. I mean, that's the biggest one. I mean, I could go on, but I've gone and looked at things after the fact. I've been deposed. I've looked at things for investors. I've worked for architects just to help them develop good details and have clear instructions for the contractors. So I've been involved in this particular expertise in a lot of different phases, but I would just say, in general, it doesn't hurt to just reach out and ask an expert. I'm not the only one. There are others.
One or two.
Yeah, one or two. So yeah,
Okay.
and I mean, I'd say the same thing applies to HVAC, but go ahead.
How long does it typically take you? So most of the larger deals that we look at are, let's say, 150 to about 300 units. How long does it take for you to go through and assess a property?
Probably a day or two.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends. I mean, some of this can be done in a pretty long day. Sometimes you end up coming back because I just like to be thorough. And report turnaround is usually a week. Okay. So, I've been called to get something done now, and I work for an owner of a bunch of industrial buildings in Houston, and I look at their ongoing maintenance for them of all the roofs. So, I mean, they have a lot of inventory. They try to stay up on maintaining their buildings, and they also want to know that the contractors they're hiring and the documents they have are correct, where they're not just finding some who knows, some roofer who's just hiring some subcontractor and then
right,
it's getting slapped together. I mean, are you actually getting a warranty or anything like that? So I do a bit of that too.
Okay.
Working for just ongoing maintenance of buildings.
Okay. Any thoughts or any specific messages that you would like to give to syndicators, investors, or passersby?
Well, I think about that. I think that I look at it this way. I've always done, I guess, with what I've done and what I've tried to, you probably have some of the same philosophy. I got in this to it's really about people. It's about helping people.
Mm-hmm.
I think you help people in a different way. Like you find deals for them. You know numbers. Pro forma, and I'm pretty sure you find enjoyment in helping and serving people. And I find, of course I work for money, but I think I get a lot of enjoyment of knowing at the end of the day I did something of value for somebody. So it's my goal to educate and help the investment and the construction community. And I'm lucky that I get paid to do that at the same time. So
Right.
it's really just a blessing to be able to do both of those things. And I think my message would be that, I'm here to help. So if you're going to send out my contact information, if there's questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. You don't have to get a contract with me for me to answer questions. I'm I look at it this, we're all in this together. We're trying to, there's a lot of different aspects of it. It's a very complicated business. It just is.
Mhm.
And I think at the end of the day, investors are being helped. Tenants of the building are being helped. I just think we're all on the same team, and I'm here to help. So that's my message.
Yep. Sellers want to sell the building, and buyers want to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm not just and I'm not a mouthpiece. I think that's an important distinction. I don't know if you've ever, seen I have been called by some investors before to look at a building for the purpose of it. It kind of seemed like a shakedown.
Mm.
And I think you're obligated. I'm obligated. You are obligated to be honest and forthright as a professional. So I think that's the best thing that you can have going for you is that you tell the truth no matter what.
Yeah.
And you're not just fabricating something for the purpose of benefiting an individual or an entity. So
Important question.
I could go on. I could just talk and talk and talk.
What areas do you service? Is there a specific region that you stay in, or where should people expect you to come out to?
So there's two types of projects that I do, or two types of scenarios. If I had to come out once or twice, and the owner was willing to pay for it, I could do anywhere in the country, possibly anywhere in the world. If I had to make regular visits out to the site, I try to keep that within kind of the Texas triangle.
Okay.
Just because I don't think that's the best serving the client if I'm not able to get there regularly. But
Okay.
if I'm making a trip out to look at something, no, I don't see geography being a limitation.
Okay. Well, cool. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
You've given me a lot of information and made it a lot clearer that if you want to save money or you need negotiation tools, to definitely give you a call. But you're a long-term blessing. So make sure the property is tight, and yeah, avoid headaches in the future, because what we don't want to do is get into a deal and we get in and then we're going to try to sell it, or now we got to, have all the residences move out and we're losing money and the income and NOI drops, and it's a bad snowball. So I definitely appreciate you coming on and giving us a lot of information. I will put your information will already be below when this video is published. Is there a specific way you would prefer someone to contact you? Cell phone, email, website?
You have my mobile number and email. I mean, that's probably the best way. Can't say I tweet.
Are you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn.
Okay, so you guys can look him up on LinkedIn as well. But throughout this whole recording, obviously you'll see his phone number and his email below. So feel free to give him a call or shoot him an email. Again, my name is Presley Hambrick, and I'm with Dimensional Capital Partners. And I thank you so much, Christian, for what's the name of your company, Christian?
WeatherTide Consulting.
Okay, cool.
It's WeatherTide Consulting. So weathertideconsulting.com, all one word.
Okay.
So WeatherTide Consulting. That's all one
Okay.
word. I've been in business for myself for 6 months now.
Mhm.
Been doing this for the last 10 years
The
for
Great Escape.
larger companies. And I still have some strategic relationships with those folks as well. So,
Okay.
you know, I think one of the best things about being in business for yourself and is being able to work with clients
Mhm.
in the exact way that you would want to work with them.
Yep. The freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom and get a lot better. But in my opinion, sometimes you can give a little bit better quality. You're not stuck in all the corporate red tape and bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You
Well,
said it. You said it.
well, congratulations on your 6 months of freedom. I'm sure you're probably working a little bit harder now than
It's not that bad.
we go from 9-hour days to maybe 11, but you know, that's what we do to you know, for freedom.
Yeah. It's a labor
All
of
right.
love.
Well, thank
All
you,
right. Thanks,
Christian, for
Presley.
coming on, and thank you, Capital Partners, for watching, and we'll see everybody next video.